every single minute thing you change to a football affects performance on the field. So if we added more technology into the football, it could turn into like a maraca, and there's just so many chips in there that the guys can't throw the football. The first and foremost thing is the performance of the field.
You're tuned in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, guiding your gridiron journey, none other than your host, former NFL lineman, Ross Tucker.
Oh, yeah, it is. But it's not just any Ross Tucker Football Podcast. It is a Monster Monday and a Winners Monday, since I forgot on Thursday or ran out of time. Whatever. We have a very, very smart guy, Sam Schwartzstein at Amazon. Incredibly smart, trying to solve all of football's issues. I love this dude. Just wait till you hear what he says about spotting the ball and using technology for that. It's amazing. The show is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Sam is presented by Labatt. Drink some Labatt Blue Lights with your friends. Live life to the power of we. Always enjoy responsibly. Beer, Labatt USA, Buffalo, New York. You are going to love this. It's Big Show time.
The Big Show.
Okay, I've been looking forward to this interview because I am convinced this guy is the world's foremost expert on like 3 or 4 different very important things as it relates to football. It's not his fault he couldn't get into Princeton, so he chose to go instead to Stanford. Understandable, I guess, as a safety school or, as a backup plan. But I'm talking, of course, about Sam Schwartzstein. He is the man at Amazon. You can see him on Prime Vision, which is really, really cool on Thursday night. Sam, thanks for coming back on the show. I think it maybe been a couple years ago or maybe last year at some point. Let's just start with that. Let's start with Prime Vision and how cool that's been for you.
Yeah, it's been an awesome opportunity to see where Prime Vision has started 3 years ago, all 22 sideline camera, and now where it's at right now. We're at the high sky camera angle. You can see everything. And also we have AI models that help, the average viewer watch the game like a pro. And so whether it's defensive alerts, utilizing AI to find blitzers, coverage ID, or even some defensive vulnerabilities, pressure alert, all these different AI models that can now, you don't need to have 12 years of football experience playing center to understand who's going to be a blitzer. We have these red orbs or different features so you can watch the game like a pro.
Okay. I love everything about this. So first of all, the Prime Vision itself, you're using the sky cam the whole time?
We're on the high sky camera angle so that you're watching from behind the quarterback.
Are there more than one sky cam or just the one?
There are 2 different sky cams. There's a low sky cam, which you can see you're at nearly the quarterback's head level. High sky is more like what you'd see in a video game. You're playing Madden or one of those other football games. We're now behind the view, and so you can still see all 22 players, but you're able to see their routes develop. And as offensive linemen, you can actually see the holes open up for running backs and can see gap schemes and different schemes because you have that behind the view.
So it's funny, calling games for CBS, sometimes we have a sky cam, sometimes we don't, depending on the broadcast, right? I love almost always my replays are high end zone, or if we have a sky cam, because it's the end zone copy. It's like you and I as linemen, what we like to look at it through, and it's by far the best way to be able to circle the left guard and show what he did. Because I think one reason, Sam, why people, I guess, appreciate what I do is because most people are not watching the line. And I probably do more line stuff than other people, naturally. So to see a different camera angle and to see me circle something that they didn't see the first time, I think that people appreciate that. So I got to be honest with you. I've seen some clips on social media, but I have not just sat there and watched a Prime Vision game. I want to do it. So you're voicing during it.
Yeah, so it's what
Who else is voicing?
So
tell me about
Alan Kirk do the whole game. So you're getting the same game, you're getting the same replays as the main broadcast, but I'll come in maybe 6 to 8 times per game and show you how to watch the game from a little bit different point of view, whether it's an analytics point of view or maybe something inside football. So something working with the Next Gen Stats team, Keegan Abdul, Bill Smith, Callie Baker, we were able to identify that, hey, when the Bills have their nickel corner into the boundary instead of the field, they have a 20% higher man coverage rate. And so we can kind of show you that. It's a lot harder to say that on the main broadcast when you're broadcasting out to millions and millions of people, but If you're watching Prime Vision, you're getting some of that niche inside football, and we call it like the identity check. How can you prepare to watch a game like a team does? How can we find out who the Eagles' identity is going to be? There are a lot of spread out formations. How do we find out who the Chiefs' identity is going to be? Well, it's going to be a lot about short throws. So different ways that you can watch the game from a different point of view.
Okay, so those 6 to 8 times that you interject, are they during the traditional commercial break, or are you more or less talking over, like, do they mute Alan Kirk to use your voice?
So I do one in between the first and second quarter. I'll do one long form piece, about 2 minutes long, kind of showing you a deep
Instead
answer.
of a commercial.
Instead of a commercial. And then other times we will tune Alan Kirk down, and you'll all come in for about 18 to 25 seconds.
And this is all from the high sky cam.
Yep, all from
so
the high sky.
I can watch Alan Kirk, but watch the game from high sky cam?
Yep, and then what I love is even the replays, we have a whole team dedicated to Prime Vision that will cut the game, so you're still getting the same replays. And I think that's what made football one of the big innovations we don't talk about. We talk about the yellow line, we talk about the audio, but high-quality slow-mo replay has changed the way people view the game, because we can really break, like you do, when you can break the game down and show people all the different strategies that are involved. And so on our show, we don't just have the one camera angle that's persistent throughout. You will still get the same replays.
So I absolutely love that. And I think most people listening or watching youtube.com/Ross Tucker NFL understand this, but the high end zone is behind the offensive line, so it gives you a totally different perspective. And it's one that I like. If you ever go to a high school football game, the coaches that are at the game scouting, they're always in the end zone. They're never on the sideline. Like, that's where the coaches go to actually be able to see the scheme and what's going on during the game, which is awesome. All right, the blitz technology. I call it the blitz technology, but what do you call it? What's the official term?
The official term is defensive alerts, and the reason why we didn't have like a blitz ID or the every development has a code word. We started out with MDM, most dangerous man, because that's very similar to what you're trying to do as an offensive lineman, is trying to MDM everything out. We call it defensive alerts because it's just something to be on alert, and as a quarterback's point of view. We used AI and machine learning technology to be able to look at thousands of plays, process them, and then surface just to the viewer a red orb. There's a lot of math, a lot of science that's going on behind the scenes, and they just get a red orb. And what we like about it is we're not saying this guy's guaranteed to blitz, but if you're the quarterback, you should have your eyes there. And so now you're just getting that quarterback's point of view to watch it. It's not a guarantee, but this is where the protection should be called. This is where the quarterback should have their eyes.
All right, 2 things on that. Number 1, do you have a percentage breakdown of how often the red orb guy comes?
It's a little bit more in depth than that. We do have some percentages, but we
like,
tune
what's
it.
your success rate, would you say, of the guy to watch or the guy to identify actually being the guy that comes with pressure?
So I don't look at that stat.
Okay.
What we do is we have a team of experts that break the game down, and I watched probably 1,000 clips in the off season to identify, if I were the center, would I have called this protection? And that's what I look at the grade, because you can only dictate whether a guy is going to come if the coach tells the player to come. So let's say it's a man coverage, cover 1, and the middle linebacker and the will are green dogging, right? So they're in man coverage. Wherever the back goes, the opposite one will blitz. Well, we could highlight both players because both guys are eligible. That's a post-snap decision. So that stat of how right or often are we're right quite a bit. There's a lot of people online that think that I'm hitting a button telling which guy is going to get it, but we're not guaranteeing that a guy will blitz.
You're not hitting the button.
I'm not hitting the button.
It's all AI.
And it's what I love about this feature specifically is it's auto-produced, meaning we don't touch it throughout the game. We don't change anything. The teams pretty much produce the feature versus like the yellow line. Someone has to place the yellow line on every new set of downs. This feature, we just let it run. And so whatever the model does, year 1, I thought it was broken. Steve Spagnuolo, there was 2 guys highlighted that I didn't think were eligible to come. You're doing your normal rules. We have 3 eligibles over here. They have 2 coverage players. They can't blitz. Well, one of them blitzed, and it was his own blitz. And so there was things that I got opened up to where it's like, hey, they're picking stuff up. They're breaking the traditional football rules here. And then that lets me kind of watch and learn a little bit more about how teams are now evolving their blitz schemes.
Because when I watched it, I thought it was like, okay, the AI can tell where the safety rotation is to see who's backed up, to see who can actually come.
Yeah, and there's absolutely features like that are involved. But I think what I love about this technology is a little more I started with a rules-based model, and talking to our scientists at Amazon, which I feel fortunate at Amazon, we have such a great crew that can do this. They're like, let's try a little bit more AI on this. And by utilizing AI, we're able to expose things that a human would not be able to pick up. There are some things where you're like, how come we didn't highlight a guy here on a traditional sense? You would have. But there are a lot more things now that we're being exposed to. This is where AI can take preparation. I know a lot of teams have reached out. They're like, we love this technology helping us prepare. We love having Thursday Night Football. We'll cut it up and into our end zone copy as we prepare if one of our former opponents have played, because we can watch and see what the model's picking up.
Wow, that's awesome. What's kind of next in terms of Amazon technology, stuff like this? What's like the next level, next step for you guys?
The big mantra we have is if the teams care, we care because the fans care. And so we will build out a lot of stuff that we do is focusing on what the quarterback's point of view is. As a former lineman, there'll be a lot more lineman stuff that we're going to start looking at. But we do this innovation process. We just met in London with our team of scientists and our production team and engineers. We all got together and we ideated on this process of how do we want our next year's broadcast to look, and how much is too much, what can we do? And my big question I go back to is, what do fans not understand about football that we can help them understand utilizing AI? And that's really what the ground floor is. And we're still in that iterative process, but there'll be I believe that there's a lot more we can do at different timing plans. Right now we're very focused on pre-snap because that's, one of the things I was very focused on is, pre-snap process, how I really care less about the result of the play.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen pre-snap, but there are different timing plans in which we can add more AI and more features to help viewers watch the game.
How many feeds are there for a typical game right now?
Right now there's 3. So we have main broadcast in Espanol and Prime Vision with Next Gen Stats.
Got it. Okay. I saw your post about this on social media when it was very much a hot topic after the AFC Championship game, and totally agree with it. Nothing bothers me more than when people say, they just need to use technology to spot the ball. Why do they still have 2 guys with sticks, and why don't they use technology? But yet none of these people actually have a practical, logical solution for how to do it. It sounded like, based on your social post, that you have put a lot of thought into it and spent a lot of time on it. I guess let's start with what the complexities are that people might not understand, and then move on to what we can do and what we still can't do and what maybe we can do at some point. So I just gave you like 5 things. So just start with
where
we're
go
at.
From the start. So when I got the job at the XFL, I was the first employee hired by Oliver Luck, and he said, you're going to reimagine the game. We have to figure out what to do. And even at that time, if you ask someone, what do you want to change about football? What rule needs to change? The first thing everyone said is, we need to measure the down and distance with technology, right? Put a chip in the ball. And so I've been down this road. I went through the whole process of trying to figure it out using different tech, whether it's the RFID chip that Next Gen Stats currently has in the ball, whether it's Hawkeye camera array, which you can now place it like soccer or tennis. And there's all these different complications. And we have some uniqueness to football. The first one being occlusions, meaning the ball is not visible by light. 75% of the ball is visible by light at all times because we're in these piles.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Josh Allen, AFC Championship game. The ball's not visible in that moment. So you really can't use Hawkeye to do it in real time. Then you have the chip in the ball. So the chip is in the ball. It's in the opposite area of where the air is injected to counterbalance the football. And so people say, well, why don't you put more chips in the football? Well, if you put more chips, if you put a more power usage chip in the ball, like there's some leagues that you literally plug their footballs in because they need to charge them for their tracking technology. Well, that could affect the performance of football. So I jokingly have on my Twitter bio that I invented football. Well, because technically I have a patent that just says inventor football, because I designed a football with our team to be able to have, hey, this is what our unique football going to be. It's an XFL tessellated logo as the pebbles on the ball instead of the traditional pebbling. So I've been down the rabbit hole, and every single minute thing you change to a football affects performance on the field. So if we added more technology into the football, it could turn into like a maraca, and there's just so many chips in there that the guys can't throw the football. The first and foremost thing is the performance of the field. And then you go to the last thing, which is possession down, and we need to know that exactly where it was timed, when the player was down, where the ball was, and then the tilt of the football. So you can't just have XY coordinates. You need to have the yaw as well, because that's telling you if the ball is this way or tilted up. The tip of the football is what we care about. So eyesight will always be better than necessarily getting exact. And so last thing I'll say is the more technology you use, the more perfect it has to become. We are okay with humans being fallible, right? Maybe not a lot of Bills fans right now. But if you use technology, it's going to make it really, really hard to get exactly what you want. And then how often do you use it? How many plays does this matter for? And so there's a lot of different factors that go into it. Now, I'm not saying this can't be solved. Now, since joining Amazon, I believe we have a great team of people that if we wanted to go down this rabbit hole, we could try and solve it. I talked to some team members last night, like, here are some things I would try and do. So it is solvable. It just is the juice worth the squeeze.
How is it solvable?
So you'd have to utilize multiple ways to change the mechanics of how we know when the player is down, and then what we're doing once we have all of the different technology pieces in place. You just have to then say.
But how do you determine when the guy's down? That's always going to have to be human, right?
Yes, and so it'll always be human. It's actually funny.
So what could they, like, the side judge or the line judge or whatever could, like, press a button when they see that the guy's down?
There's that. That was my first thought. The next thought is you have you don't want to change officiating mechanics. They already do a lot, and we're already trying to solve officiating for them with this feature. So I think there are other technologies you can do utilizing frequencies. So I've messed around with some audio frequencies to try and measure, hey, if we can triangulate the exact frequency that a whistle is for each official, we can know which official blew the whistle when, based off of a receiver in their belt pack. So there are a lot of different things I'm working on right now to try and figure out what the best pathway to do this is. But I still love that football has this, not every problem needs to be solved. That's something I learned when I was at the XFL. I just looked at it. I had 152 different things that I was researching when I first got the job at the XFL. 64.5-page rule book, went line by line. Why do we do every single rule? And what I realized through that process is football is not a solvable sport. There will always be things that we argue about. 11 players on either side of the ball.
Right.
The forward pass is still an issue on how we can utilize football. I come from the tech world, so it's a bug in the whole system. Is this forward pass, and we're still trying to solve problems through what is a forward pass, and hey, when is an incompletion? Are we having negative passing yards versus yards after catch once they cross the line of scrimmage versus behind line of scrimmage? So there's all these different things that even the forward pass is hard to understand sometimes. And so, I love that football has these weird intricacies that no other sport has.
So I was on the sideline for NFC Championship game, and the Eagles ran the tush push several times, right? Being behind, like, the side judge or the line judge on those plays, that is impossible. They're 25 to 28 yards away. You've got a 16 to 20 huge men hitting each other in a huge mass of humanity. To think that they can see through that and see where the ball is and when any body part's down, there's no chance. It's basically their best guess. But I do think what gets people frustrated is like the Josh Allen play, where literally one guy comes in on one side of the 40, the other guy comes in on the other side of the 40. In that case, in my mind, usually as they come in and they see where the other one is, they kind of even it out, which I can live with. But then they didn't in that instance. They kind of could have evened it out, and it would have been the 40-yard line.
Yeah, I never was an on-field official, so I don't know 100% all their mechanics that they do, but I think it's important. That is a tough job. And what I would say is to people, Bills fans is, you're thinking about the QB sneak. They're one of the best QB sneaks in the NFL that season, but they've been stopped a couple times, There's always a possibility of an issue of not getting it in those scenarios. So It might have been time to call the sucker, when you tag the play with the sucker, meaning, hey, the quarterback's going to reverse out instead of doing the sneak. So, I think that you can always put yourself in those scenarios where you're left up for interpretation.
What do you do all off season?
So I work on all our other sports. We have NASCAR now coming up, so I'm working on NASCAR.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm a full-time employee at Amazon as well as on air, so I have two separate lives come fall.
So what does that mean? You work on NASCAR?
So I'm looking at how do we help viewers better understand NASCAR, right?
Okay.
So right now there's all these different features about how the race is going and how do we understand who's battling, what's the real leaderboard versus the current leaderboard, and who's actually the race leader even if they're in 13th place. And so how do we communicate that? How do we use analytics to better tell those stories? And so whether it's that or we have the NBA coming up, as well as developing the features for the fall. We are going to be a lot of cool things that we're going to release next year on Thursday Night Football, whether it's stuff that will make it to the main broadcast or stuff on Prime Vision with Next Gen Stats.
Got to ask you about the kickoff rule that, now we got year 1 in the books. You were integral in this kickoff rule first starting in the XFL. Your thoughts on how the NFL did this year and how it worked?
I haven't spoken to anyone at the NFL. I've only seen that their results of it, and I think it's really exciting. They've had fewer concussions and more returns. And so when you think about safer play, that's a check, as well as more excitement, right? We want to see more returns. I think, they probably would have wanted a few more returns than what they got, but what's nice is knowing that the play is safer than a traditional. They have fewer concussions even with more returns this season, that there might be some rule changes that they might do, but I think right now, the NFL sees it as a win. I think it's exciting. I think we've seen the return rate go up even in the playoffs because now teams are utilizing the stuff that they might have been saving. Now, hey, we can take an advantage.
Also the weather.
Also the weather.
The weather has had an impact.
It has had an impact. The weather is definitely a feature of this. I was nervous about the weather in my kickoff, and so I had a rule that said if the wind was over 15 miles per hour, we could move the ball up 5 yards. I did it one time, first play on ESPN2 week 1, and it was a touchback, and Oliver Luck came up to me and goes, never do that again. So we had the rule, but we never used it.
That is so funny. Next Gen Stats. Last question. You guys do such an awesome job. Give my listeners and the people watching youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL, give them the pitch on why they should check out Next Gen Stats every week.
So I think people will think analytics, and they're like, oh, analytics is ruining sports, but that's not what Next Gen Stats is. It's a bunch of football guys and girls that want to show you how to understand the game from a deeper point of view. And again, they have that same mindset. Hey, the teams utilize this data. Every single team has analytics staffer. And utilizing Next Gen Stats, because they have the tracking data, because they're able to utilize their machine learning models, they're able to expose new things to how you can understand the game. So I think you can say, 3rd and 7 plus, that's where quarterbacks make their hay. Red zone efficiency. Well, those are all represented in stats like success rate, like EPA, their ability to show how great running backs are, rush yards over expected, how many running backs are actually gaining yards more than they're expected. These are different ways to look at the game and better understand whether it's your fantasy team or your favorite team. You're getting a deeper look into how, not just how you can understand the game, but this is how teams are processing this information.
Sam, I could have you on every week, dude. I'm a big fan. I love your process. I love your passion. And I'm very thankful that there are people like you working on trying to make every aspect of the game better, not just the on-field, but also how we consume it. Thanks so much for coming on the show, man.
Awesome.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You guys know all year I've been telling you about Smirnoff, not only as an official sponsor of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, but also an official vodka partner of the NFL and Super Bowl 59. The best part about Smirnoff, by far, is that you can get the world's #1 vodka without breaking the bank. Okay, this is key. You don't need to pay a lot of money for expensive vodka. This feeling is what the good folks over at Smirnoff call Smirnoff Extraordinary. Smirnoff, we do game days. Please drink responsibly. Smirnoff number 21 vodka, distilled from grain, 40% alcohol by volume. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York. Pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer and may vary by state. Please do not share with anyone who is under legal drinking age.
Tuck's Takes.
Man, how great was that conversation? I feel like I could have talked to Sam about the technology around football, the Amazon player tracker. I mean, all of that stuff is absolutely awesome. Almost as awesome, by the way, as those of you that email me, ross@rosstucker.com, after you did something extra, something unique, which really helps out the show and the growth and what Jack and I are trying to do here. Shout out to Anna Gray. She reviewed Fantasy Feast podcast on Spotify, so she's the Spread the Word winner. Or Josh Zatkowski, who got a story from myfrontpagestory.com for his significant other for Valentine's Day. That counts as a sponsor. Love that, Josh. And then Brian Conrad. He had not one but multiple YouTube comments, youtube.com/RossTuckerNFL. All that stuff helps tremendously. I love it. I think we're done here.
Thanks for tuning in to the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Make sure to also check out Even Money, Fantasy Feast, and College Draft, all on the DraftKings Network on Samsung TV Plus, YouTube, or subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform.
Shout out myfrontpagestory.com. It is by far the best gift you can ever get a loved one. My number one recommendation is just to go to myfrontpagestory.com, throw your email address in there. That way you get the 20% discount, and they'll email you before a big holiday like Valentine's Day or Mother's Day so you don't forget. BackOfficeScheduler.com, HumanHeadNYC.com, Sporticulture, Pizza Boy Brewing.